Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Yep, it's Wednesday. All right, so today for math, we're working on how we can solve time in a word problem. So just a reminder of the breakdown from seconds to minutes and minutes to hours. We know that for every 1 minute, there are 60 seconds, okay? And we could figure that out because again, kind of going off of what we did yesterday, we need to find the rule. Okay, the rule is a pattern that you will see in all of the numbers and it applies to all of them. So I can say that 1 times 60 is 60. It becomes that rule if it works for all numbers. 10 times 10 times 60 is 600. So you can check that all of them actually apply, and any number here on the left side for minutes times 60 would give you any of the seconds on the right. Okay, and then going from hours to minutes, because we know that in 1 hour there are 60 minutes, this chart is the same as this. So 1 hour, kind of like the same as 1 minute, 60 seconds in 1 minute, 60 minutes in 1 hour. So rather than me rewriting that once again, just knowing that in 1 hour, there are 60 minutes, okay? So let me skip down to 5. So how many minutes would there be in 5 hours? Remembering the rule that we are multiplying times 60. So we're going to multiply 5 times that rule, which is times 60. We're going to get 300. Okay? And that rule applies to any number from hours to minutes, okay? So if you're trying to figure out the total number of minutes in X number of hours, all you have to do is whatever number hour that is, if it's 28, you can take 28 and still multiply it by 60 to get your total minutes, okay? All right, so that leads us into our first word problem. We're going to figure out minutes or hours, and I'm going to pause so we can find that word problem real quick. All right, so our first word problem reads, a family trip is planned for next summer. The family will be leaving from Seattle to California at 6:05 a.m. The flight will take 3 hours and 40 minutes. What time will the family arrive in California? All right, so a few things that we first need to figure out. First, we need to figure out what information in this word problem is information that we need to actually keep to solve the problem. What numbers included in this problem are going to help us solve, and what operation are we going to perform? All right, so I see a few different numbers. I see a time here that starts at 6:05, and pertinent information, important information that I recognize is that it tells me that it's a flight going from Seattle to California, starting at 6:05, but taking 3 hours and 40 minutes. So I need to figure out what time the family will arrive in California. So that's the important information that I've been able to find in my word problem. All right. So I'm just going to highlight or underline from Seattle to California. The reason I'm underlining that is because when you live in somewhere in the United States, we have different time zones. So if you're living on the West Coast, like both Seattle and California are, the time zones are the same because we're on the same side of in the United States. But if you live in New York, it's a different time zone because you're all the way on the other side of the country. All right, so one thing to know is Seattle, California, we're going to be in the same time zone, so I don't have to take away any time or add on any time because of the difference in time zones because we're in the same zone of time. All right, so we're going from Seattle to California, knowing that it starts at 6:05 a.m. also tells me it's in the morning, and that the flight will take 3 hours and 40 minutes. Okay. Last thing I'm going to underline is the question that it's asking me to solve. What time will the family arrive in California? I'm going to do a squiggly because I know this lets me know, or as a reminder of how I'm going to solve and restate my answer. All right. So it looks like I wiped off some of this word. That's okay. We know it says family. so I can go ahead and move this up a little bit because the pieces of information that I didn't underline, it's just additional information. It's not something I need to have underlined or have ready for me to answer this question. Okay, I know that it's going to be in the same time zone, what time my flight starts, how long it takes, and where I'm going. All right, so in order for me to figure this out, I'm going to start with my initial time of 6. I'm going to use another marker because this one's going out. I'm going to start with my time, which is 6:05, and rather than starting at 6, I'm going to start at 6:05 because that is the time that we're taking off. All right, now I'm going to go in increments or chunks of time of 1 hour because I'm pretty good with my hours and I know what 1 hour looks like. So if I go from 6:05 to 7:05, that's 1 hour. 7:05 to 8:05, that's another hour. 8:05 to 9:05, that's another hour. And if we take a look, our total time is 3 hours. So here's my 1, 2, 3 hours. And I need to add on those 40 minutes. Okay, this is going to be my 40 minutes. But now I need to figure out what 40 minutes plus that 9:05 time is going to be. 6:05 to 7:05, 1 hour. 7:05 to 8:05, 2 hours. 8:05 to 9:05, 3 hours. And lastly, adding up my last 40 minutes. So 9:05 plus 40 minutes. Okay, remember that we're adding in the minutes. So 40 minutes plus 5 minutes would give me 45 minutes. Okay, and nothing happens to the 9 because it still stays under that 1 hour time frame. So that gives me a time of 9:45. Last thing I'm going to do is go back to the question, what time will the family arrive in California? So this is where a lot of you are really doing a great job restating your question. The family will arrive in California at 9:45. It's important to recognize if it's morning or evening. Okay, and we know that it is morning, okay, because it goes 3 hours and 40 minutes after 6:05 in the morning, and it's still morning time, and it doesn't cross over into PM until it hits that noon. So it's after that noon or 12 o'clock time is when you start transferring over to that PM, okay? All right, so there's our 9:45, and we're gonna pause so we can write down another word problem. All right, so our second word problem is the family's return trip will take place at 3:45 p.m. heading back to Seattle. The flight back will take half an hour less than their first flight. What time will they return to Seattle? All right, so we do need some additional information from the previous word problem. And before we get to that, we want to go back into this word problem and highlight what information do we need in order to solve. All right, so I see that 3:45 is the start time for them to head back. So they went to California, and this is now information about how they're coming back and when they're coming back and how long it's going to take. All right, so 3:45 heading back to Seattle. Okay, I want to go ahead and underline all that, a little bit more information, that's fine. All right, so this flight back will also take half an hour less than their first flight. I'm going to underline all of that because if I just underline half an hour less, I need to know what I'm comparing that to. Okay, and then I'm going to squiggly wiggly the question. All right, so some additional information that I need is what? What do I need to know from the last word problem that I need to solve this in order to solve this? All right, so I need to know how long that last trip took, right? So that took 3 hours and 40 minutes. So a couple different things. What operation are we performing? Are we operate, or are we using more than one operation? If so, what should we do first? Okay, there's more than one way to answer a problem, but with a problem like this where you're doing multiple things, it's best to go in a way that works best for you. So me, personally, I'm going to subtract first because this tells me half an hour less than their first flight. So first I need to understand what half an hour is. If we know that in 1 hour there are 60 minutes, what is half in minutes an hour? So what is half of 60? 30. So we know that half an hour is going to be 30 minutes. So we need to take first our 3 hours and 40 minutes and subtract 30 minutes because we're taking half an hour less. That trip back to Seattle is going to take 30 minutes less. So when we subtract, we get 3 hours and 40 minus 30 would give us 10 minutes. Okay, I'm just writing min, M-I-N, period, just for short. All right, so now we have how long it's going to take to get from from California back to Seattle. Okay, and now we also know what time we're starting. So now we're going to take this time and add it to this time because that's how long it's going to take. So creating that time, number line one more time. Here we go. And I'm starting at my start time. Rather than starting at 3 or 4, I'm going to start at the 3:45 time so that I'm jumping in increments or groups of hour based off that 3:45 time. All right, so 3:45, and I know this is how long it's going to take. Jump it another hour to 4:45, and I'm going to label as I go to make sure I don't lose track of what this is and why I'm doing that. Okay, and I know I need to make another one. Another one would give me 5:45. Make sure you don't get mixed up on the numbers because they're very close. The numbers are very close, so easily we can make a mistake and go 3:54. Okay, so 3:45, 4:45, 5:45. Saying it out loud also helps. Oops. Writing 1 hour because it's 1 hour from here to here. 6:45, and that's another hour. Okay, so now that I have my 3 hours, I have 3:45 to 4:45 is 1, 4:45 to 5:45 is 2, 5:45 to 6:45 is 3 hours, and I'm still just adding 10 more minutes now. So 10 minutes plus 6:45 would give us what total time? So again, we're adding the minutes. This is the hour, this is the minutes. So 45 plus 10 would give us 55, and it doesn't cross over into the hour because it only does if it goes past 59. Okay? And that would give us 6:55. So they would return back to Seattle at 6:55. Due to space, I don't have a lot of space to write that in, but one example of how you'd answer that in a complete sentence is they would return to Seattle at 6:55. Okay, remembering AM and PM though. And it hasn't crossed over past that 12 o'clock time, so it would be continuing to be PM. All right, so today's assignment is a very similar word problem using time. Make sure you're using your timeline, your number line, and start with the original time if that's helpful to you. Otherwise, you're going to use a little bit more subtraction. Keep track of your increments and add and subtract accordingly, and remember your time of day. If you have questions, you have to ask, but you guys got this. You guys are really good at keeping track and telling time, okay? So make sure you're working on these skills. Do your best, simply try and ask for help if you need to, all right? Have a great day. Thanks.